Marry me. You said I should start thinking more strategic, right? And you need citizenship to make you legit. That's what you needed Mecca for. Because knowing you and him, that ring damn sure wasn't about love. It was about...
A power wedding that will probably turn into a bloodbath, and another Tejada dinner scene with the addition of Noma's extended family. That's the agenda for today's breakdown, after they released a few exclusive images for episode 9. I do normally tend to wait until Thursday morning to drop my preview when it comes to these images, but I just couldn't help myself this week with a few, because of how we see the Tejadas, Noma, and possibly Noma's brother having dinner together. So, we're going to be focusing on a couple of these images involving the wedding. We're going to be running through Kane's potential game plan in terms of marrying Noma. Are we going to get another chaotic dinner table scene? Because we all know the Tejadas, they don't do normal happy family dinners. There's always going to be some fireworks. We're also going to look at whether this could be Noma's brother, and how he could just kind of shift the power dynamics in the world of Ghost, and also possibly beyond, because we all know what Kane aspires to be. He wants to be the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York, and I think he may even be able to achieve what he's been wanting ever since season 1. We're also going to look at some few different perspectives and outcomes for Noma, her brother, and also for Anya, for all things Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now it does go without saying, I think we all know Kane's not in this marriage for love. He knows that it's a business transaction, and he's doing what needs to be done in order to secure his future. Just like Effie wants to do by going to Stanford in California, Kane saw an opportunity and thought, this is how he can actually step up, get into more of a partnership with Noma, and have something of his own. And I still think Kane is plotting a more sinister plan, which Noma's brother may even help him with, which is something I'm going to come to in just a moment, so just hold on to that thought. However, just before he gets married to Noma, will we see him sleeping with Effie? I have read a few comments where some actually believe this could actually be Tariq, and I can actually see why some would think so, but I do think it is just classic trailer manipulation. I find it very difficult to see how and why Tariq and Effie would just randomly sleep together out of nowhere. They're still not on good terms after what she did at the end of season 3, and it just makes no sense, especially considering they've now spent 2 episodes rebuilding this relationship between Effie and Kane, not Effie and Tariq. Despite Kane being on the verge of marrying Noma, he still made it quite clear he still cares for Effie, and I do think, before or after the chaos that we're about to see, we will see them together. But over to the dinner scene. Now these are a few images that were released for episode 9 in regards to the wedding, and maybe a pre-wedding dinner. We've got Noma, Anya Covington, and possibly Noma's brother and the Tejadas having dinner at Kane's penthouse. And what have we seen before when it comes to these dinners with the Tejadas? I can only think of one dinner which was full of laughter and happiness. That was soon after Lorenzo was released from prison. The family was back together for the first time in over 10 years. This conversation wasn't about drugs, how they were going to do business, or who was playing what position. It was just a family back together again, which hadn't been complete for a very long time. That's probably the first and last time we've seen a happy Tejada dinner scene. Since then, all we've seen is absolute chaos. From Diana exposing Zeke's secret, to in more recent times, Diana actually being the one who was exposed in 404. So, are we expecting this dinner to go plain sailing smooth, with happy celebrations, for basically what is a sham marriage? Definitely not. I'm certainly expecting some feisty conversations to be had at this dinner table, and also some awkward conversations. We've got Anya and Diana sitting next to each other, looking like they're having a little exchange, which is a little awkward, considering Tariq was sleeping with Anya, all while Diana was pregnant with their baby. We also know Anya doesn't hold back when it comes to her thoughts and opinions. She's a bit of a rebel, who sometimes can't be controlled. However, the same could also be said about Diana. She's also quite feisty, who isn't afraid to speak her mind. We also have to throw into the mix, Anya still doesn't know her mother is a drug dealer.
Your dad was a drug trafficker, Anya. Yeah. I didn't know that's what he was into when I met him. He never wanted you to know because he wanted to protect you from a very dangerous life, which is why...
In 408, Noma threw all the blame on her father, which I don't think Anya bought. I'm sure she does have an inkling of who her mother really is, which is why she went to go see Kane later on. But I do wonder if there is more released in terms of who Noma really is, and whether that begins to stir the pot. Again, in terms of the relationship potentially being destroyed, let's not also forget who was behind Anya's father's death. It was Noma. Effie, Tariq and Brayden all know this little secret, and I do wonder, is that something that could potentially also be revealed?
I've been begging her to take me to Nigeria, like where her family's from, and she never does. She's like, oh my gosh, she's so selfish. She goes there all the time to visit her brother and never takes me.
Now earlier in part 2, in conversation with Anya and Tariq, we learned that Noma has a brother in Nigeria. She mentioned that her and Noma traveled the world from America, London, South America to Europe. But the one place she refuses to take Anya is Nigeria, and I think we all know the reason as to why. She always keeps Anya away from anything to do with her drug world. If she's in any kind of danger or if the walls seem to be closing in on Noma, she'll kind of whisk Anya away and move her from one place to another. It's one of the reasons why Anya said she doesn't have many friends. She's never really been able to settle in one location. However, in my breakdown for 406, I questioned, could Noma's brother actually be the one who's the real boss of the organization? The man who actually really runs shit? I do think it is a possibility. Just like Felipe Lobos once said to Ghost, he can be on the beach working 1 or 2 days of the year, while his men and soldiers take all the risk. That could be the position Noma's brother is in. He might actually be the top dog. Now while he's here, will he actually begin to realize Noma doesn't actually have things under control like she says she has? Because from where I am at this moment in time, I think we can all see from the beginning of season 4, Noma's been looking very weak and very vulnerable. I mean, her killing Obi was a huge mistake in itself. He was the one person who put Noma first, above his own needs. He always served her and did what was best for her. Since Obi's been gone, she now has people like Kane who's lurking to potentially, in my opinion, take what she has. So, if this is Noma's brother, when he does come to town and sees the absolute chaos, and how Noma doesn't have anything under control, could that make him think of an alternate structure to his organization? Maybe even a new leader for his drug operation and legit businesses, perhaps Kane Tejada. I do think if Kane sees a bit of tension between Noma and her brother, Kane will be able to see it, because he is someone who can put 2 plus 2 together. He'll see that things aren't going well between Noma and her brother, and that's when Kane could possibly swoop in, making him a proposal.
You go. Your schoolyard antics nearly got me killed. You taunted that behemoth with your fists and he came back with guns aimed squarely at me.
Throughout season 4, Kane's still not being treated with the respect that he wants, and that's not what he signed up for when he started to work for Noma. And despite this marriage, I still don't believe he'll get what he truly wants. So if there is any animosity, if there are any disagreements between Noma and her brother, I wonder, will Kane be lurking around the corner to kind of make him a proposition to maybe take control over the operation in New York, or maybe even more? We all know all Kane wants to be is a leader, and the opportunity might just actually present itself in episode 9 or 10. So, let's see what Kane has up his sleeve, and how big of a role Noma's brother really does play in the grand scheme of things in regards to this whole drug operation. Now earlier in the week, we also broke down a potential bloodbath on the horizon during this wedding. So, who's to actually say Noma's brother even survives? And the same goes for Anya Covington. I wouldn't be surprised if there are 1 or 2 deaths that really rocks Noma's world, and to the point where she may even have to flee America. I do think we have to consider this alternate perspective. They have teased a London-based spin-off before, and if shit hits the fan with a bloodbath of a wedding, the death of a brother, Anya, or even both, if this wedding doesn't go through to completion and she doesn't get her green card, could she potentially flee back to London, which then sets up this London-based spin-off? It definitely is a perspective I do think we have to consider. Now for argument's sake, let's just say that does happen. Noma loses her brother and Anya in a bloodbath, where she then flees back to London, because she can't go back to Milan because of what happened with Francesco Lombardi. She might not be able to go back to Nigeria after what potentially could happen to her brother. So, maybe London is her only option, and if that does happen, what happens to the drug scene in New York? There'd be yet another power vacuum for someone to take advantage of, and again, is this where Kane could potentially swoop in? We all heard what Tasha told Tariq at the end of season 3. Get close to Noma, learn what she knows, learn how she runs her organization, learn the ins and outs of her drug world, and then when the time's right, he can step in, take over, and bring Tasha in. But it does seem like Kane is actually the one who's best positioned to do what Tariq was supposed to do. He's the one who actually is closest to Noma. He's the one who's been learning the ins and outs of her business. He knows the streets well. He knows how the game works. He's become a lot smarter and a lot more strategic. And he also has the fear factor from those in the streets. We've seen it a few times again in season 4. And if shit really does hit the fan like we all expect it to, and if Noma is taken off the chessboard or flees back to London, who's in the best position to take advantage of this power vacuum? It has to be Kane Tejada. Of course, he'd have to source a new connect, which could be Noma's brother, or maybe someone else, but most of Noma's infrastructure would still be in place for him to take advantage of. And just like I mentioned at the beginning of my breakdown, he could genuinely end season 4 as the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York. He may finally kind of reach his dreams and aspirations in terms of wanting to be the head of his very own drug organization. So, That is another perspective we do have to consider, which I do think is a possibility. And genuinely, who knows? Could that then transition into a more Kane-orientated spin-off as him as the lead? I do think Gary Lennon and the team over at Lionsgate are cooking up multiple spin-offs, not just one, and I'm sure they've probably looked at Kane being a fan favourite, how Woody has grown into the role as Kane Tejada, how he's actually become a fan favourite, and thought, maybe there's actually more we can do with his character. So, let me know what you think. I will cover the rest of the images in my usual preview for episode 9, but let me know your thoughts on a potential chaotic dinner scene, and could Noma's brother start realising Noma's losing control? Will that give Kane the edge to potentially be the biggest drug dealer in New York? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.